Wanna play?
Here's Johnny!
I need a bigger boat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
We have such sights to show you.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Wanna Play. My name is James McKenna, and today the power's out in my house, so I'm filming this out on the porch. But today, we're gonna be looking at the top 10 horror villains who were done dirty. Now, obviously, there aren't only 10 horror villains who were done dirty, and by done dirty, I mean like horror villains who were fantastic in the first film or the first couple of films, or as the series went on, they just got worse and worse, and maybe they got better afterwards, but horror villains who started off as amazing, and then at one point in their movie series, they were just the absolute worst and just done without any care at all whatsoever. And today, we're going to be looking at the 10 worst examples of that happening. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Now obviously, as I said, there aren't only 10, so I am going to be looking at a couple of honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I wanted to give out to Leprechaun because, well, this would be in the top 10, but at the same time, I mean, come on, this isn't a leprechaun, like, it's not at all. The second honorable mention I wanted to give out was to Angela Baker from Sleepaway Camp because they recasted her in part 2 and 3, and then when she came back in part 4, that was like a terrible movie anyways. I also wanted to give an honorable mention to Jigsaw because, well, Jigsaw, the reason he's an honorable mention is because, yes, Jigsaw's a terrible movie, but at least John Kramer himself isn't that bad, but I still think that he was done pretty dirty, especially being killed off in just the third entry. And, of course, the American Werewolf in London, because American Werewolf in Paris, you know, exists. So, those are my honorable mentions. Let's get into the top 10. So, coming in at number 10 is The Thing. Now, the reason why The Thing is at number 10 is because I don't actually hate this movie. I'm talking about the prequel, of course. I don't hate the prequel to The Thing, it's just that, yeah, it's pretty bad, especially because of what they do to The Thing. Now, as I said, I don't hate the prequel, I have some dumb fun and enjoyment out of it, but just, if we're saying that The Thing in the prequel is the same thing as the 1982 classic, yeah, no, he was done pretty dirty in my opinion, and I think he deserves a spot on the list. Number 9 is the Xenomorph. I think that the Xenomorph is even done dirty in Aliens, which is the second Alien film. Even though it's my favorite of the series, I feel like he was done pretty dirty there, because in the first Alien there was only one, and they had like this crazy struggle to beat him, and he was killing everybody left and right. But then in Aliens, there was like a whole bunch of them, and they were just like easily disposed of. But what I'm mainly talking about is the Alien in 3 and 4, because it's CGI, and the CGI is really bad. Like, oh my god. People say that the production on Alien 3 isn't actually that bad, but I mean, looking at the Xenomorph, yeah, it's not great. And then you get into Prometheus and Covenant is an even worse looking CGI Xenomorph, and Prometheus are like, no, the Xenomorph was actually invented by some AI robot on their planet instead of just being this, like, crazy species just out in the wild in space. No, I'm pretty sure the Xenomorph is done much more dirty than lots of other horror villains, and I think the Xenomorph earns a spot. Number 8 is The Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Jeepers Creepers 1 and 2 are fantastic films. I love Jeepers Creepers, and Jeepers Creepers 2 I think has some of the best atmosphere in horror history. But then Jeepers Creepers 3, I think they make them a little bit too strong, and they make them a little bit weird too. Like, there's a part in Jeepers Creepers 3 where he jumps up and he's flying in the air, and a guy's literally like taking a machine gun and just shooting him over and over and over, just spamming him with bullets, and he's not being affected at all. Like, there's no way you can defeat him in Jeepers Creepers 3 logic. And also, the truck being like this major death vehicle thing that you can't, like, no, come on. The Creeper was awesome in the first two films, and then in part 3 they just didn't care enough to actually make him cool and make him a believable and awesome creature, and yeah, he was done pretty dirty in my opinion. At number 7 is Brahms from The Boy. Now, there are going to be major spoilers here, so seriously, if you haven't seen The Boy, skip over this one. Like, seriously, like, I'm giving you this heads up because, come on, you might want to skip this if you haven't seen the film, but yeah, here we go, spoilers. In The Boy, it's such a fantastic twist because the whole movie, the doll is moving around, but you never actually see him moving around, and they hint at this twist in such a creative way. They never actually say that Brahms, who was the boy, had actually died, and you could see outside there were some shots in the window where you would see like windows that shouldn't really be there, and then in the twist in the end they revealed that the boy, Brahms, the doll, wasn't actually moving. It was this crazy giant psychopath who's been living in the walls the whole time, and it's such an amazing twist, such a great reveal, and it makes for one of, in my opinion, the best modern horror movies. But then in Brahms the Boy 2, you know what they do? They say, nope, Brahms was real, the doll was actually moving. That whole twist, that whole original movie does not exist. They completely negate it, and just all the amazing twist that comes with it, and just makes it just such a stupid, unbelievable film and premise and concept, and it's just so bad. It's such a dumb decision. So dumb that Brahms, despite having only 2 movies, earns a spot. At number 6, fairly obvious pick right here, Freddy Krueger. I mean, yeah. The first 3 Nightmare on Elm Street films were fantastic. They were, honestly, in my opinion, masterpieces, and that's because Freddy was so scary and such a creative villain, while also cracking jokes and one-liners at the same time. And then in 4, he starts to dissolve and evolve into just this comedic joke. And then in part 5 it gets worse, and then by Freddy's Dead he looks like he's got bubblegum all over his face, and he's doing Looney Tunes gags, and he's flying on the broomstick while the Wizard of Oz music plays, and it's just, oh my god, it's so bad, and it gets even worse. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I think, is a good film, but just Freddy gets weird. Okay, New Nightmare obviously isn't as bad as 5 and 6, or 4 for that matter, but still, Freddy is treated pretty weird in that one, and then the remake comes along and they recast Robert Englund. Now, I'm not against recasting Robert Englund, especially for Jackie Earle Haley, but just what they do and making him like, yep, there it is, he's a convicted pedophile. Just, no, come on, why would you do that in your big horror franchise? Now we can't root for Freddy Krueger anymore. Oh my god, Freddy was done so dirty. I mean, yeah, pretty obvious pick. Freddy should be on everybody's list. At number 5 is Chucky. Now, I'm not talking about Seed of Chucky because in that film, Chucky was still Chucky in my opinion. The best part about Seed of Chucky was Chucky himself. No, I'm talking about the remake. I mean, like, what is this? Ugh. Gross. Now, the movie itself isn't actually too bad. Like, there are some really cool scenes and really good kills in the film, but the design of Chucky is so awful, and just all of the information going into this film, how Don Mancini did not want it to happen at all, and how it was literally in between 2 movies in the original Chucky series. I mean, Chucky, just because of the remake, earns a spot on this list. If the remake didn't exist, Chucky would be nowhere near this list, but just because of that awful remake, yeah, he earns a spot. Number 4, another obvious pick like Freddy Krueger, it's Michael Myers. In the first 4 Halloween films, not including Season of the Witch obviously, Michael Myers was fantastic. Like, you never really saw him, he was always in shadow, except for part 4. Part 4 you got to see more of him, and even then his mask was a little bit weird, although I don't hate the mask in part 4. But Halloween 5. Yep. That happened. Just look at him. Just look at him. Yeah, he was defeated by a fishnet. And yeah, he was defeated by a fishnet and an old guy beating him with a 2x4. Halloween 6, Michael Myers was freaking awesome. And then H2O, once again, he was just weird. Obviously not as bad as part 5, but H2O was just like... There were just some weird moments that took me out of it, especially with the Michael Myers character. And then Resurrection, he was cool. He was great the whole film. Like, they brought him back to his roots almost. And then he was punked out by Busta Rhymes. No, Michael Myers earns a spot on this list. At number 3, we've got Leatherface. Leatherface in the first 3 Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, and then the remake and the beginning, and even in 3D in Leatherface, although not as much as the original films, was just an amazing brute force who you do not want to come across. Like, if they're iconic horror villains that you do not want to come across, Leatherface is on that top tier. Unless we're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, where Leatherface is... Now, I'm going to say Leatherface is a transvestite. That is awful. No, I'm not saying that transvestites or transgenders is awful. Not at all. No, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. But for the character of Leatherface, the guy who we're rooting for in this series, it was such a dumb decision. Like, yes, there were elements in the first couple films of that, but just having him as a transvestite, and not even, like, you could pull that off. In my opinion, you could pull off Leatherface as a transvestite, but just the way they do it, and they honestly just disrespect that whole community by having him, like, running around screaming at the top of his lungs the whole time and just being so weak and so weird, and just, he was being punked out by the final girl. Like in the original couple films, Leatherface did not take anything, but in this film, Leatherface starts to stand up and the final girl goes, "No, you sit down," and he goes, "Okay." And it's just like, what are we doing with Leatherface? Like, he's supposed to be this giant brute force, and you turn him into this. What the hell were they thinking? And this is where we actually start to get into depressing levels, because number 2 is The Tall Man. First 4 films, first 4 Phantasm movies were all amazing. 2 and 3 were a little bit weak, but 1 and 4 are 2 of my favorite horror movies of all time. Like, honestly, 2 of my favorite movies of all time. Just the atmosphere of those 2 films, and just how amazing The Tall Man was, and just how cool, and the amazing performance by Angus Scrimm that we got in those 4 films was just unlike any other horror performance. And then in Phantasm Ravager, he's CGI. Like, he's not CGI the whole time, but as the film progresses, yes, Angus Scrimm passed away, and there was nothing else they could really do, except, I don't know, maybe not do the movie? He's CGI! With a $300,000 budget! What? Why? Like, come on! You couldn't use, like... I hate that movie so much because of what they did to the Tall Man. Like, even Reggie, Mike, and Jody, they're not bad in Ravager. Like, they have some pretty cool moments. But the Tall Man, Angus Scrimm being CGI. No. No. At number 1, it's Pinhead. Yep, there's no other choice that could have been number 1. Now, the most, or at least one of the most popular videos on the Hellraiser series is a video titled WTF Happened to Hellraiser, which is one of my favorite videos on YouTube, honestly, because not only is it entertaining, but everything that the guy says is so true. And he sums it up perfectly.
The real victim here is Pinhead. He was the most interesting thing about Hellraiser, and the series slowly digested him over the course of 9 movies and shit this out. No other villain, no other horror villain has ever been this abused. Not Freddy, not Jason, not Michael Myers. I mean, look, those guys all got their fair ration of shit, but none of them got fucked on to this degree.
He's so right, because it's so true. nobody has been messed with and just not cared about and just been used for a cash grab like Pinhead. Not one horror villain, not Michael, not Freddy, not Leatherface, not the tall man, not anybody on this list even comes near the level of awfulness that Pinhead turns into. The first 8 films, Pinhead is amazing. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously the 8th film he starts to get a little bit weird when he's, you know, saying stuff like, "How's that for a wake-up call?" Like, no. And then Hellraiser Revelations happens. Speaks for itself, doesn't it? Thanks for watching my ranking on the top 10 horror villains who were done the dirtiest. And let me know your ranking in the comments down below. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be seeing a lot of similarities between you guys' list and mine, because these are just the 10 worst examples of when studios or directors or writers or whatever just want to make money off of a good name but just don't put any care into them at all, and you end up with stuff like this. So let me know, as I said, your list in the comments down below. You can subscribe to this channel if you would like to. You don't have to though. And also, if you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram at JamesFromWannaPlay. So thank you for watching. Goodbye and good night. Bang.